Anytime anything is held in high esteem by the world, ask yourself why. Why does the world hold certain things in high esteem? There must be some type of self-interest involved for society to keep something going. When it comes to regulating human sexuality, it's obvious. The world doesn't want traumatized children to become psychopathic adults. The world has no problem with traumatized children becoming defective or just dysfunctional, because you can cope with dysfunctional or defect people. But one thing you cannot cope with is a reprobate on the loose. So the world does not want to have reprobates on the loose, because reprobates on the loose are extremely dangerous, and because you can't cope with them, they are a menace to everyone. Now this is the thing about the world. They do not want to agree with Christ, because that means they have to be responsible. And they don't want this. On the other hand, they don't want to suffer nor endure the consequences of their negative will either. So they don't want the good, because the good requires responsibility and that you participate in solutions, so they don't want the good. But they don't want evil either, because evil means you're operating in self-destruction. So they don't want dangerous, self-destructive lunatics around them, but they also don't want righteous people to walk by faith. So what do they want? They want to be able to, they want to be enabled in their negativity without having to face the consequences of the negativity. That is what the world wants. That's what worldly people are all about. They want to continue in their narcissistic attitudes without having to suffer the consequences of those narcissistic attitudes. That's why they want believers to be available as supply to bail them out whenever they want. That is what pagan Christianity is all about. That is why those Babylon churches are tolerated, because at least believers that are trapped in those Babylon churches, they, without knowing better, will bail out society from the harms they bring on themselves. That's how the world wants it. The world does not want a believer that walks by faith, because a believer that will walk by faith has the power to hold the world accountable. They don't want that. But they also don't want serial killers, serial rapists, and all of those creeps roaming around freely, dumping frustration, dumping filth and danger all over the place. They don't want it either. So they just want to exploit the good to relieve themselves from the negative they are involved in. That's the world. And those are the people that the Most High calls lukewarm. The term lukewarm has been misused with Babylon churches so often. They use this term to blackmail churchgoers and keep into remaining in the cycle of churchgoing. However, the term lukewarm simply means people that don't want to be responsible, so they begin to vampirize the good and those that are aligned with good so that they don't have to face themselves. That's what a lukewarm individual is, and the majority of the world is lukewarm. The majority of the world, if you would ask them if they agree with pedophilia, child sacrifice, with raping children, all of that, they would say no, absolutely not. They obviously know that those things are very vile. They wouldn't agree with serial killers. They wouldn't agree with people that exploit the poor. I mean, obvious things that are evil openly, they would not agree with it. However, if you ask them, do you worship Christ? Do you acknowledge Him as Lord? Do you acknowledge that you have no natural ownership of anything on the earth? Do you acknowledge He's the owner of the earth and you only exist to glorify Him? If you ask them that, they would say, get out of here. Don't force this down my throat. So they are against the Creator, being the Creator. They are against God being God. But at the same time, they don't want evil either. But because they cannot blackmail the Most High into relieving them all the time, and because they can't blackmail nor control the Most High into enabling the dysfunction and self-destruction, that's why they hate the Most High. And that's why they tolerate evildoers, because at least with evildoers, they can play the victim. That's how the world is. Lukewarm. very few, I don't say too few, but actually it's a tiny minority of the world's population that's a full-blown reprobate. Some say 1% or less than 1%, but I don't care how tiny the percentage is. A very tiny part of the human population is a full reprobate. The majority, the overwhelming majority, just wants to be left alone. And then, from the whole human population, you have a minority, a smaller one that's born again, and from the small part that's born again, you have a minority of that minority that truly walks by faith. So, the biggest part of the human population just wants relief. They don't want to be responsible, but they also don't want to face consequences. They don't want destruction to follow upon them, even though that destruction comes because of their disobedience to Christ. But they want to repent and submit unto Christ, so they will desperately look for people to relieve them from the consequence of what they're doing. Once you understand this, you have the right context to examine the practices of the world. Now, one of those practices is the wedlock. I already explained that wedlock is not the same as marriage. They are two different things. In common language, people use the word wedlock when they're referring to marriage, but marriage and wedlock are two very different things. I've made videos about wedlock and marriage in the past. Please watch them. I'm not going to repeat everything over here. In this video, I just want to explain why the world keeps this wedlock tradition going. Yes, I know it has to do with the government wanting to have a hold on the male population. They want to drain male energy for the evil spirits. Yes, I know all of that. However, there is another reason why they keep this wedlock or matrimony tradition going. They keep it going because it hinders reprobation amongst females. Now, if a woman is about to become a reprobate because she resists Christ, she'll become a reprobate anyway. But the world's authorities do not want a high percentage of female reprobates on the loose. Yes, they know that there will be female reprobates anyway. They know that. But they don't want the female reprobates to be on the loose. A male reprobate is very dysfunctional. A male reprobate you recognize immediately because they just can't hide it that well. Even when they use paranormal aid to hide their reprobation, it will be very obvious if you remain around them for a short period of time. Men are just not that good at acting in the long run. Plain and simple. Females that turn reprobates, because they're so emotionally wired, they are more skilled in harming others and targeting others because they use their emotional abilities to vampirize others. And because they are females, they are physically weaker than men. They use this to their advantage in victimizing others. Because a reprobate, whether they are male or female reprobate, a reprobate is someone that is addicted to self-victimization. Why? Because they don't want to face reality on reality's terms. They now feel victimized by reality. So them feeling victimized becomes a drug because now they use this victimization to extract the other drug they are addicted to, and that is sympathy and positive attention. So reprobates want positive attention, they want sympathy, but they want it unconditionally. They want unconditional sympathy despite how wrong they are. That's what a reprobate is. A reprobate has forfeited all human responsibility and all human obligations to the human population. They want all the good that exists at the expense of everyone else. That's a reprobate. So a reprobate will feel victimized and attacked when he or she cannot get away with this attitude. So to quote unquote defend themselves. At least that's how they see it, to defend themselves against reality, victimizing them. They're now victimizing others to get a hold on other people, to get a hold on society or on the human population. Because, as I mentioned before, society is a fear construct that worldly people enact. So that's what the reprobate is. It's a self-victimizing addict. It's an addict that's clinging obsessively to this idea of them being the victim. That's why they molest children. That's why they lie compulsively all the time. That's why they do all those things, because they see victimizing others as a way of getting significance. They want control. And because they can't have control, they feel upset, and now they dump that frustration on others to be relieved. And everything they do is justified because they just defend themselves. They always have their reasons for what they do. That's a reprobate. Now, female reprobates are extra dangerous to any human community because they often don't appear to be the danger they really are. So they have access to children also, and they also harm children. Yes, you have women out there that sexually abuse children, who victimize kids. Yes, you have such women out there. They also victimize animals, but I'm talking about humans now. Such female reprobates, when you confront them, you may lose your life. And they will pretend to be the victim, and they will use guilt tripping to get away with it. Now, such women, if you have them on the loose, you have no safe community at all. And the authorities in the world at least want to have a functional community. They know there will be dysfunctions and defects, but at least they want things to function at the surface. So, what do you do with those reprobate women? You give them a bailout for life. And that bailout for life works like this. No matter how messed up they've become, if they find a man who falls for their charms, she can now use religion as well as the government to trick this man into dedicating his life source onto her as long as she lives. And the man has to take an oath to the government and to whatever religion he adheres to. To do this, it will be signed in paper. So now, after this, the man is obliged, under the threat of violence, to keep providing for this woman. That is what the wedlock is for. It's to hinder the reprobation of the female population. The world's authorities do not want righteous women, because righteous women are a threat to the world, because they hate Christ, so they don't want female Christ followers at all. So, what they want are females that are either dysfunctional or defect, but addicted to the addictions society prescribes onto them. They don't want reprobate females. Okay? So, that's why we have the wedlock. And in previous decades, let's say before the 1960s, that's all it was. It was a bailout for reprobate women. Now, I'm not saying that every woman that got into a wedlock did this because of this reason. You have women who get into a wedlock thinking it's marriage. Okay? They don't know the difference. You even had women throughout history that were believers that got involved in a wedlock because they were deceived also. So not every woman that gets involved in a wedlock is a reprobate on the loose that the government wants to chain. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm just revealing that that's why the world keeps this tradition of the matrimony or the wedlock alive. Because just think about this. If you have a girl that was traumatized as a child, and she knocked at the community for assistance, but the community was looking away. The community just wanted relief. And she was further victimized. She became dysfunctional And because dysfunction wasn't helped, she turned defect. And when she was defect, there was a certain point in time that she decided that she wanted attention and validation at all costs. So the reprobation process began. So now she turned into a reprobate. It's her that chose that way of reprobation, so she is one responsible for being a reprobate, but she's not the only one responsible, because the only reason why this option for reprobation appeared attractive to her was because she was ignored and neglected for so long. And there are human beings out there, whether male or female, that no matter how bad they're treated or how much you neglect them, they still want to chase after the good. Some are just weak-minded and they surrender themselves to evil just to get relief instantly. Now, when someone decides to give themselves over to evil repeatedly, that's them doing it, okay? Nevertheless, they didn't turn out that way just like that, because even if someone thinks it's an attractive thing to surrender to evil, if you have a functioning community that hinders evil, sooner or later they will fake this because they can't function anywhere. But because worldly people are relief seekers, they don't want to address things, they don't want to uproot things, people can easily turn into reprobates. And the world's authorities see this about their own worldly people, and they see how dangerous it is when you have reprobates on the loose, especially female reprobates. Because they know that worldly people tend to tolerate violence by women. Violence against women is punished immediately, but violence by women are often overlooked or excused. The world's authorities know this about their own worldly people. That's why they promote matrimony and all that comes along with it in advertisement. Why? So that if there is a reprobate woman out there who just wants to be built out, she can go to a church or to a mosque or to whatever religious institution she wants. She can play the redeemed woman over there. And once you do this, you will sooner or later have a guy that will fall for it. And the guy will be so enchanted by her charm that he thinks, oh, this woman has been through a lot. She's quite wounded. But you know what? I'm a good guy. I'll take care of her. That's the trick. And once the guy makes a commitment, he will later find out that he was scammed. But when he finds out that he has been scammed, it's way too late. And because society is the one that enables these reprobate women, society also needs to give them a bailout unless they turn on society. Because those reprobate women know very well that it's society that enabled harm onto them. This does not give them the right to be evil, absolutely not, but they know it. So society doesn't want those reprobate women to turn on society as a whole and to just go out and explode here and there. So society enabled the reprobation process. Now society also needs to enable a bailout for them. And that's why since the 1960s, a lot of quote-unquote empowerment has been introduced for women. But all of these empowerments really don't actually empower women. They actually are triggering women out of their feminine role. So now more women than ever are dysfunctional. And by keeping the female population as dysfunctional as possible, female reprobates feel at ease. Because if you have a lot of healthy women functioning in the femininity around, this is going to trigger the female reprobates. So, through mainstream media, they want to keep women everywhere as dysfunctional as possible, but they don't want them to become reprobates. So, the wedlock, combined with monogamy, are kept high by churches or in other religious institutions, by mainstream media, and also by governments, to prevent reprobate women from harming communities. But they can never say this openly. That's why it's always the man's fault when a woman becomes violent. That's why it's always the man's fault when a woman is out of line. Even when everyone can see that she is a pathological liar, that she endangered herself and her children, even if everyone can see that she's dangerous, they will blame her husband or any man that's close to her. If they can't blame the father, it will be the husband or her boyfriend. Why? Because if they have to admit that this monster that's amongst them turned into a monster partially by their own enablement, well, that's not going to look good on them, does it? So they don't want to face themselves. So they want reprobate women to be chained in those wedlock abominations, because the wedlock is an abomination to the Most High, because it's a paranormal trap. They want women to be stuck in it, because when the women are stuck in those strongholds, the guy they are stuck with will be the one burdened with her reprobation. And that's why you have this saying in the world, happy wife, happy life. So where's the husband in this? Where's the value of the man? So men are taught it's all about keeping their woman happy, even at their own expense. Why? Because reprobate women don't want to consider anyone else. It's all about them. So you want men in general to be conditioned to always look after women, including reprobate women. Because then the reprobate women will feel included and they're less likely to explode. But this will cause other dysfunctions in society, because now you have a lot of women who are not reprobates that remain dysfunctional because they have expectations of men that don't add up with reality. But the world's authorities prefer to have most of the women mentally ill, if that means reducing the amount of explosions by female reprobates. That is what's going on. So, I just wanted to explain to you why the world holds the wedlock in high esteem. It has nothing to do with love, nothing to do with, honoring God's design of male and female, because they now even makes the wedlock available to same-sex partners in some countries. The reason they hold the wedlock in high esteem, it is to deter violence that they've enabled themselves. If someone turns into a reprobate, they turn into reprobates. Okay? If you're dysfunctional or defect, due to your upbringing or due to what society enabled onto you, that's not completely on you. You didn't choose to be born and didn't choose where you grew up, okay? But once you're a bit older, you don't have the option to seek for help. And that's the difference between the reprobate and the one that becomes born again. The reprobate just doesn't want to comply with any solution. Even if the reprobate was a victim, they don't have to remain a victim. The moment someone chooses the way of reprobation, they're not a victim anymore, they've turned into a perpetrator. Before they turned into a perpetrator, they were either just a victim or an enabler, unaware. But once they became aware they were enabling, they should have looked for help and deliverance. If they don't, they become harder and harder, and before you know it, they are a reprobate. And because reprobation is the result of worldly people not facing things, they now need to look for bailouts and outlets for reprobates. And this is how they deal with female reprobation. The wedlock. Look, I'm not condemning people that are in a wedlock. If you are a true believer and you are in a wedlock, you didn't know any better, you were deceived by the world. I've just explained to you why you were deceived and what's the agenda behind it. I'm not condemning anyone, neither am I pointing the finger at anyone here. Just realize that the wedlock is a trap. And the other way around, it works also. There are also many women that were trapped in a wedlock because the community didn't want to face a male reprobate. Because it also works the other way around. But it's mainly designed for the containment and reduction of female reprobation. But it also works to keep male reprobates in check. So, if you're not in a wedlock, don't get into any. If you need to register that you and your partner are together because you're a man and you want to give her your last name, or for the sake of taxation, you can do a register. Just for an administrative reason. Don't get into a wedlock. It's a paranormal trap that binds you to demons. And the wedlock is used to hide and contain and reduce reprobation amongst the human population. So if that is the purpose of that institution, then likely if you're looking for a wedlock, thinking it's real marriage, you'll likely be involved with a reprobate. There are many who are trapped to reprobates this way, but they thought they were in a marriage. They were working onto something worthwhile. And it's only after time that they figured it out the hard way. Some never had the chance to figure it out because they were killed by their narcissistic partner before they even had a clue something was wrong. So this is something quite serious. Walk by faith, agree with Christ, don't get into a wedlock. Be at peace.